أي كافر ينقتل. وهذا عبرة لكم يا آل سلول، هذا عبرة.
سعد اقسم بالله والله العظيم، والله العظيم سعد تكفى سعد، تكفى سعد، والله العظيم، والله نسير ما فكرنا، والله نسير.
الله أكبر!
In the past few years, we've seen a number of incidents where Islamic State fighters have killed their closest relatives. We've seen people killing their cousins, uncles, siblings and parents. A Syrian fighter even killed his Alawite mother in Syria. On June 24 of this year, a pair of Saudi twins who had wanted to join ISIS found their family members opposed to their attempts to join the militant group. What you're seeing right now is footage from the family home when they stabbed their 67-year-old mother to death. They also stabbed their 73-year-old father and their brother at the same home, although the men didn't die. Just imagine that mother's last moments alive, seeing her 20-year-old twin sons attacking her mercilessly because she had a different interpretation of what Islam is about. The fact that some people are willing to kill those who are close to them is incredibly shocking. But do these Islamic State sympathizers and recruits act psychopathically because they didn't get a PlayStation for Eid? Or do they find numerous examples of Islam's most prominent figures who put faith before family? And is all this supported in any way whatsoever by Islam's textual sources? So, is there any precedent of Muslims killing relatives, or at the very least wishing to kill relatives? In chapter 58 verse 22 of the Quran we have the following verse. You shall not find a people who believe in Allah and the latter day befriending those who act in opposition to Allah and His Messenger, even though they were their own fathers, or their sons, or their brothers, or their kinsfolk. The verse on a literal reading tells us good Muslims do not befriend anyone who opposes Allah and His Messenger, even if they were fathers, sons, or brothers. Now, it doesn't tell you to go and kill them, but let's understand the context of the verse and why it was revealed. In order to do that, we read the tafsir of Ibn Kathir, arguably one of the most respected exegetes for mainstream Muslims, and we'll see what he says about the verse. You will not find any people who believe in Allah and the Last Day was revealed in the case of Abu Ubaidah Amir bin Abdullah ibn al-Jarrah when he killed his disbelieving father during the Battle of Badr. This is why when Umar ibn al-Khattab placed the matter of Khilafah in the consultation of 6 men after him, he said, if Abu Ubaidah were alive, I would have appointed him the Khalifa. So we are told this part of the verse was revealed to endorse a man who killed his own father. Then it tells us when the second caliph Umar was deciding who would succeed him, he said he would have wanted this guy to lead the Muslim nation, purely because he was able to kill his father and show his loyalty to the religion. Anyway, maybe somebody will say, hey, it's only one guy who killed a relative. I mean, come on, give us a break, you Islamophobe. So let's read on. It was also said that the ayah, and by ayah here it means verse, even though they were their fathers, was revealed in the case of Abu Ubaidah when he killed his father during the Battle of Badr, while the ayah, or their sons, was revealed in the case of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq when he intended to kill his disbelieving son Abd al-Rahman during Badr, while the ayah, or their brothers, was revealed about the case of Mus'ab ibn Umair who killed his brother Ubayd ibn Umair during Badr, and that the ayah, or their kindred, was revealed about the case of Umar who killed one of his relatives during Badr. And also that this ayah was revealed in the case of Hamza, Ali and Ubayd ibn al-Harith. They killed their close relatives, Utbah, Shayba and al-Walid ibn Utbah that day. Well, what a pleasant bunch. The names we just saw are not some random names. They are prominent and respected figures in Islam. We hear about Abu Bakr, the close friend and immediate successor to Mohammed, wanting to kill his son. By the way, Abu Bakr in another story also wanted to kill his father for insulting Muhammad, but didn't find a sword nearby. Links to all these sources are in the description like always. Then, who do we have? We have Mus'ab ibn Umair who killed his own brother. Mus'ab died in the next battle at Uhud, so didn't last very long, but was one of the first Muslims to follow Muhammad, and was his special envoy who went to Medina before the Muslims migrated there. Then we have Umar, who was the second caliph and close companion of Muhammad. He killed his maternal uncle. Then we have Hamza, Muhammad's uncle, and Ali, who is Muhammad's son-in-law, cousin, and the fourth caliph. All of these people killed their relatives, and they are looked up to by Muslims around the world. For those who want to say it was done in battle, well, as we saw in episode 3 of the series Offensive Jihad, the Battle of Badr was instigated by the Muslims who wanted to attack trade caravans. These prominent Muslim figures are meant to be role models for Muslims today. It sends a clear message that religion should always take precedence over family loyalties, to the extent that a Muslim should be willing to kill their own family members if it was to please Allah. In Islam, faith always comes before family. After all, we all know about the story of Abraham, who was on the verge of killing his own son because he felt that God told him to. The message there was his loyalty to God was so strong that he didn't hesitate in killing his own son just to show his loyalty to his faith. What kind of messed up message is that? The lesson from that story is, don't question, just do it. We also have an authentic hadith which shows the mentality behind some of the early Muslims. We have Umar, who eventually becomes the second caliph, suggesting to Muhammad how they should deal with the captives of the Battle of Badr. Umar's suggestion was that the Muslims should all show their loyalty to their faith and execute their closest relatives. I am of the opinion that you should hand them over to us so that we may cut off their heads. Hand over Aqil to Ali, that he may cut off his head, and hand over such and such relative to me, that I may cut off his head. We have an even more troubling couple of verses in chapter 29, verses 23 and 24, where we read, O you who believe, do not take your fathers and your brothers for guardians if they love unbelief more than belief, and whoever of you takes them for a guardian, these it is that are the unjust. Say, if your fathers and your sons and your brethren and your mates and your kinsfolk and property which you have acquired, and the slackness of trade which you fear, and dwellings which you like, are dearer to you than Allah and His Messenger and striving in His way, then wait till Allah brings about His command. And Allah does not guide the transgressing people. The words striving in His way that are mentioned in this verse are translated from the word jihad. So in other words, Allah is threatening any Muslim who likes his children, parents, siblings, and a whole host of other things that are usually dear to a person. If you like any of those more than Allah or Muhammad or doing jihad for Allah, then you're in trouble. No wonder we find some Muslims killing their parents if they don't allow them to do jihad. Muhammad famously had severe issues with one of his uncles. He even revealed a chapter cursing his uncle Abdul Uzza, more commonly known by Muslims as Abu Lahab. Imagine the God of the entire universe with its billions of galaxies, the God who apparently created millions of complex species of life, dedicating an entire chapter in his allegedly perfect book for the sole purpose of cursing a man and his wife in some desert somewhere, then vowing them severe punishment in hell. But what did his uncle do to deserve such a response by the God of the universe, who seemed to get involved in this petty family feud 13.8 billion years after creating everything? We read about this in Sahih Bukhari, the most authentic hadith collection for most Muslims. The Prophet went out towards Al-Batha and ascended the mountain and shouted, O Sabaha! So the Quraysh people gathered around him. He said, Do you see, if I tell you that an enemy is going to attack you in the morning or the evening, will you believe me? They replied, Yes. He said, Then I am a plain warner to you of a coming severe punishment. Abu Lahab said, Is it for this reason that you have gathered us? May you perish. Then Allah revealed, Perish the hands of Abu Lahab. So basically, Muhammad gathers the people who have busy schedules and have better things to do, promising them he has an important announcement. He then tells them he's a messenger coming to save them from a painful punishment. And his uncle, clearly embarrassed by his nephew wasting everyone's time like this, tells him off. Of course, Muhammad had a direct line to the creator of the universe, who weighed in on the family feud and told Abu Lahab and his wife not to mess with his homie. But in case all that wasn't enough, we have a number of authentic hadiths which are quite disturbing and reinforce the point that Muhammad and his religion come first before any of your loved ones. These hadiths tell us that Muslims have no choice but to love Muhammad above everyone else. The name of the chapter in Sahih Muslim kind of explains it all. The obligation to love the Messenger of Allah more than one's family, son, father, and all other people, and mentions of an absolute absence of faith regarding one who does not love him with such love. So it's very clear what we're going to read. But let's read the actual hadith anyway. The Messenger of Allah said, None of you is a believer, till I am dearer to him than his child, his father, and the whole of mankind. Wow. Just think about this for a second. He wants them to love him more than their own kids, parents, and as if that's not enough, the entirety of mankind. Or else you're not a believer and you'll go to hell. How very nice of him.
They love me, all my people with me. They love me all.
In case the point wasn't driven home, another hadith, this time in Sahih Bukhari, records a similar message. Allah's Messenger said, By him in whose hand my life is, none of you will have faith till he loves me more than his father and his children. So, in conclusion to this point, it's clear that there are verses in the Quran that encourage believers to be hostile to their family members if they are not fellow believers. especially if they are hostile to Islam as an ideology. On top of that, some of the most senior companions to Muhammad killed or threatened to kill their direct family members, setting a solid example for today's Muslims to follow. So it's absolutely no surprise whatsoever when we look at the sources in Islam's early history to understand why some people in ISIS would kill their own relatives. That's it for this part. The next episode has been one of the most that has been demanded, and it tackles the argument that ISIS are not Muslims because they mainly kill other Muslims. Please share these videos where you can. Let's get more people educated on these topics so we can stop living in denial and finally bring about meaningful change by identifying and addressing the root problems. Thanks for watching and hasta luego.